Hello. Yes, speaking on behalf of the Scottish Unemployed Workers Network, and if you haven't got one of our newsletters, please come and see me. I've got loads of them. Probably like me, you've had problems trying to choose which of the workshops to go to, because of course everything is all linked, and what we're discussing here is probably similar to what's being discussed in other places, and the point of a conference like this is making those links and linking the small local campaigns with the bigger picture, so that those local campaigns don't become in competition to one another. So it isn't, is it my cut or your cut, but that those campaigns are linked into the bigger picture, and I'm sure we're all very aware of that. One thing that I find quite strange, and I've been trying to understand, is why is that some things suddenly catch people's imagination. Why the bedroom tax, horrific as it is the thing that's actually really firing large numbers of people up, and many other things that affect probably equal numbers of people are maybe not getting that immediate response. And I think there's a bit of a clue actually in an article I was reading in The Guardian on the train on the way down, and that article was about climate change, and it was saying, well, that basically the idea that we can restrict climate change to the 2 degrees is off the agenda. You know, we're all doomed, basically. That article saying we're all doomed due to climate change was on page 10 of The Guardian, and it wasn't a very big article. And that's because climate change isn't something that's happening suddenly. It's one of these things that's creeping up on us bit by bit. And I think a lot of those cuts that we're having, they're just doing it slowly, piecemeal, and we've only had, what, 70% of the cuts so far? So at what point do people suddenly decide enough is enough? And our middle article here actually tries to outline some of the cuts that we've had so far, and actually we ran out of space before we got onto universal credit, so there's just so much that's happening. Specifically the cuts that are affecting the unemployed, well, obviously the cuts in overall size of the benefit, the fact that benefits are only going to be allowed to increase by 1% a year, which of course is an actual cut in benefits, and it's also a fundamental break between the idea that benefits actually reflect people's needs. Then the workfare, the pushing people who are on benefits to work for nothing, and I'm sure you're all aware of the protests against that. And also the huge pressure that's being put on people, that the sanctions, that all the hoops, the increasing number of hoops that people who are applying for job seekers allowance, as for other benefits, are having to jump through, and proving that you're spending 20 hours a week looking for these jobs which don't exist, and that's going to be increased to 30 hours a week. So you're basically supposed to spend your entire, a whole working week looking for jobs. If you don't do that, or if you can't prove that you did it, or if you're 5 minutes late for your appointment, then you lose benefits, and how are you supposed to survive? So, and the whole treatment that people are getting when they go to the job centre is so horrific that some people, however much they need those benefits, are just not going anymore. So, well, this is something we were talking in the previous meeting about, the need to work with the PCS, about the treatment of people, and about people who are involved with the PCS not imposing those sanctions, because we've all got to work together on that. With respect to the workfare and to the sanctions, I think that's something that we do need to add into that statement that we're going to be discussing later, the statement from this meeting. Obviously, this is a meeting about what to do about things. We all, I'm sure, in this room support all the protests, all the big demonstrations that are going to be happening. I'm sure all of us here support the idea of direct action, of civil disobedience, and not just clicking on a computer, but actually getting out into the streets and doing something. The hardest thing is getting the people who aren't in this room to feel that actually there is something that they can achieve, that doing these things can actually get you somewhere. I think we need to look historically at how we won everything in the past, and that those things that we're fighting now to defend, we only got because of fighting in the past. But I think we also need to look at examples from other places of other successful systems. And I'm sure all of us this week have been thinking about Venezuela. I think we need to look at places like Venezuela. I think we need to see examples. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it was going in the right direction, and it was also it's not just the actual achievements of cuts in poverty, of building housing and all the rest of it, but actually getting a lot of people involved on the ground and getting communities motivated behind it and actually doing things. And there are examples closer to home. There are examples like in Finland, for example, which everybody acknowledges has one of the best educational systems anywhere, which incidentally, one of the things they do is that they give more money to the worst schools, not the best ones. But that education system was actually built up in Finland in the 1990s after they'd had a big crash and were really suffering. So there are lots of positive examples which we need to seek out and draw people's attention to show that there is another possibility. I'm speaking here on behalf of the Scottish Unemployed Workers Network. I'm going to have to put on another hat here because we don't actually have a policy on this, so we'll go for a Chavista beret. And I want to say that one of the things we've not talked about here is independence. And I do think, I'm involved with the radical independence movement. I'm sure a lot of other people are. Yes, we're fighting against the cuts everywhere across the UK. Obviously, I'm not originally from Scotland, as you've probably noticed. I think that if we could have an example of a better system in Scotland, it would have a good impact on what happens in the rest of the UK. Most of these welfare cuts that we're fighting against comes from Westminster. So involvement in the radical independence movement both directly hits the cuts. Okay, we need to be fighting that here and now as well. It's not an alternative, it's an as well as. But it will bring an end to those cuts. I'm not supporting any party. I think once we've got independence, we've got to go on fighting, obviously, to end the cuts. But I do think that's an elephant in the room that we really need to take on as well. Thank you.